Cypress Development Corp's flagship lithium project is located just east of Albemarle's Silver Peak mine in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. A 12-hole exploration drill program for lithium-enriched claystone on Cypress's 100% controlled properties is now underway. Cypress Development Corp trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the Pink CYDVF, and on Frankfurt's C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Stewart Muir, Executive Director of the Resource Works Society. Welcome back to the show, Stewart.
Thank you, Jim.
Stewart, you're on a tour of northern BC talking to First Nations and their interest in resource development, and you're speaking to us from Kitimat. What's going on there?
Kitimat, a lot of excitement here. I've been talking to the local people about what's coming down the pike. That would be the LNG Canada project, amongst other things. They've just done a massive expansion and upgrade improvement of the long-standing Alcan smelter, Rio Tinto Alcan smelter that's here. They're now making the cleanest aluminum in the world right here in little old BC. And in Kitimat, we're also seeing the future of LNG unfold for Canada. And so today, what I'm finding out is that people are anticipating that there will be what they call an FID, a final investment decision, perhaps this year, that will precipitate a huge amount of work to be done, billions of dollars to be spent to build basically a gigantic refrigerator on the coast so we can cool the natural gas, make it smaller so it can be put onto a ship and sent to where it's needed in Asia. And everyone is talking about this here in Kitimat.
Now, with liquefied natural gas, up until a couple of years ago, everybody called natural gas a clean fuel. Then the propagandists started saying, oh, it's just another fossil fuel. Is that really true?
Well, certainly it is a carbon fuel, a fossil fuel, and like everything we do in life, there's a positive and a negative. The negative of a fossil fuel, of course, is when you burn it, you release CO2. The positive of natural gas is that it has about half of the carbon of, say, coal, which is the predominant electricity making fuel used in Asia, where they want to clean up their air shed and make sure that, you know, they're fulfilling their Paris commitments and doing right by the environment and being more efficient economically. All those things natural gas lets you do, but they don't have ways of getting the commodity over there. So that's how Canada can come in, and indeed is coming in because of what's being developed in places like Kitimat, using BC gas and Alberta gas that's sourced in the northeast of BC and all over Alberta. So we've got the commodity, we just need to get it to where it's needed.
Your focus of your tour is on First Nations and resource development. What have you heard from them so far?
Yeah, what I've learned over the last couple of years of our research at resourceworks.com, and by the way, you can follow me on Twitter, SJ Muir, to find out what we're doing daily, is that First Nations, Indigenous people in general in Canada are the future of the economy, because they are the ones who, in rural Canada, where the resources are, where the wealth of the country is, they have the long-standing claims and rights, and out of a lot of strife and conflict in the past, now we're in the reconciliation era. A lot of people are saying, okay, what's the way forward? You know, the wrongs of history surely have to be righted, but people have to live, and what are we going to do about that? So I've been talking to First Nations all across the north on this tour. It's summer, it's a great season to be out here enjoying the landscape, and I'm learning. So what is it that they want? I mean, it's hard to generalize. I'm not out to be a spokesperson for First Nations. They have to do that for themselves. But I'm trying to get some lessons as to what the trends are. I think, number one, balance between the economy and the environment is possible. That's what I hear again and again, but you have to work at it.
How good is Canada at balancing economy and environment?
I think we're far from perfect, but on the other hand, we're better than almost anyone else. You know, I think if you want to find countries that are better than Canada at managing the environment, economic balance, you could go to a couple, maybe in Norway. They come out very strong. A couple of other European countries. But apart from that, the world actually looks to Canada for regulations. They know that we have the rule of law here. We have a high reliance on the resource economy, and also in our democracy, people demand that it be done right. So we have rules in place. So what we see is people, Indonesia, Mongolia, I've talked to all sorts of people who come to Vancouver for mining and oil and gas to learn about our regulations because they actually want to take them home, a little souvenir of Canada, so they can apply these regulations, which are lengthily and expensively developed. So we've done all that work, and the world comes to us. So I think that's a pretty good signal when you see that happening, that you have something others want. And so I think on that basis, plus, I mean, look at other things. The reforestation, we're doing a really good job at that. Not perfect again, but going in the right direction in terms of how we protect the water when we extract, say, natural gas for LNG. That's a great story because we're not harming the water. I mean, we've got environmental groups who are tasked with watchdogging that stuff, and they've been unable to show that we're not doing right by the land. I think it's good that they're out there doing that work, but for all of the claims that we see about it, I've yet to see a single instance where the surface water aquifer issues have not been solvable by industry and government when they work together with a mission to make sure that we're protecting the water properly.
We'll have more with Stewart Muir right after the break.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications, patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Magnum Gold Corp. Inc., MGI on the TSX Venture Exchange. A 2015 drill program on the LH property intersected high-grade gold, including 16.9 meters of 13.58 grams and 11 meters of 20.66 grams per ton gold. A follow-up drill program is planned to further evaluate previously identified subsurface high-grade gold mineralization. Please visit our website at magnumgoldcorp.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Stewart Muir. Stewart, your organization has some concerns about the proposed changes to the BC election system that'll have a mail-in ballot this fall. What are your concerns?
Well, as you know, I'm traveling across the north of the province right now, the rural areas, where I'm hearing the most concern is in such areas. It's not the only place. I think the proportional representation proposal that the province of BC is putting on the table is one that most people aren't paying attention to yet. It's going to be in September and then closer to the vote in October when people focus their minds on it. But I would say right now, there's a lot of concern about the process this far. It's a complicated ask that the province is making of people. They're saying, would you prefer to change what we have now, the first past the post system that has worked for a very, very long time to get elected representatives into their seats in our legislature, and would you like to choose an alternative, one of these three choices that we haven't really studied? We don't know all of them what they would be like in practice, because in at least one case, it's never been done anywhere in the world. So it's somewhat speculative. Also, they're asking us to trust, if we choose to go to PR, that a group of academics will be entrusted with taking on how to implement it and some of the details that could be quite important details. Academics who aren't elected by anyone. So I think there's going to be some, concern around that. But I think in the rural areas, what I'm hearing is that already rural BC is underrepresented in a way. I mean, it's concerned that you will have bigger ridings, bigger than Germany in some cases, where the MLA for, say, Prince Rupert is elected out of Prince George in some massive new riding, where there's actually two MLAs. And here's a little bit of detail. I don't want to get too far into it. It's complicated stuff. But you can have a system where one big riding's got two MLAs. One of them is elected first past the post, like we do now. So the party, maybe it's the NDP, gets the most votes. There's the first MLA. But the second one, it's not the number two. Maybe that's a BC Liberal comes in second. You think that would be your second MLA, right? No. They do a cross-province analysis, and then they decide to distribute to all the different parties according to the percentage of the overall vote that they have. So that the riding, in this case, might get the number 6th placed party as their second representative and call that democracy. So I think there's a lot of concern over examples like that seem not to be commonsensical. I mean, they might work in a theory, in a model, but I think people who have cast their ballots, maybe 80% of people are voting for two main parties, but only one of those parties, gets a voice. It kind of sounds funny to me.
We'll have more with Stewart Muir right after this.
Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. Work programs are underway in Finland and planned for Canada this summer. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol ADD, on Frankfurt symbol 82A1, and the OTCQB symbol ASDZF. Please visit our website arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Stewart Muir. Stewart, the BC government's talking about new regulations for resource development. How are people in rural areas taking these proposals?
Well, there's a lot going on there. I think we have a reform-minded government. They're doing a lot of reviews, not just in resource development areas, but pretty much everything. One thing I've been looking at very closely is the Professional Reliance Report. It came out about a week ago, and it's basically recommending that the current system where a company that wants to, say, build a new mine goes to the government and says, here's what we want to do, and then a process begins where they have to show that they're doing the right engineering and that the biology implications are studied and any agrology or maybe there's forestry issues. All of these things that come into play are done by professionals who answer to their professional bodies, the registered engineers or whatnot. And those companies employ those professionals to do the work required. And with the stamp that they have as registered professionals, they are able to execute the work required to meet the legislative needs for a particular project. And on the basis of that, they can smoothly work with the provincial government to ensure that the laws are followed and that all of that work is done correctly. So that's how it works right now. And it is the result of a reform process begun under the BC Liberals to make these processes more streamlined but still effective in protecting the environment. I would say there's very little evidence that they don't protect the environment. I think they have done a good job, but we are seeing some, I think, heavy lobbying from environmental groups and the provincial government labor union, the BCGEU, to bring those jobs back into government, which, given that we've got about 51,000 members of the 5 associations who are the subject of this Professional Reliance paper, who right now seem to be fairly content with how they go about their business, and they think they're succeeding, and they take it very seriously. I mean, foresters, biologists, engineers, they're typically very serious, meticulous people who understand the great responsibility that is placed on their shoulders, and they don't simply, sign off on things that aren't right. And you see that they face severe consequences if they don't do it right. So, it's a system that, by and large, has worked. There's certainly examples that you could point to. Well, what about that one? Well, there's examples of things in any walk of life where you have to improve, and it's no different with the professional system. But broadly speaking, that's the situation right now. So the report that came out last week is proposing a whole lot of changes, like bringing it back in-house and so forth. I think broadly speaking, the professions have come out. They're trying to maintain good relations with the province. They don't want to get offside. We see business groups, the mining exploration group, the mining association, the business council, the forestry council, COFI, Council of Forest Industries. All of them have come out in the last few days with very strong language, reacting negatively to the proposed changes. So I think it's caused a lot of upset that we would see such a big change, because most people in this industry and the professions will tell you it's working pretty well. If the government wants to make some changes, hey, there's ways to do that without having to turn everything upside down. They can amend some legislation and maybe change how they appoint people to boards and stuff like that, which isn't really that hard to do and ought to satisfy, the concerns that are out there. And they're legitimate concerns, by the way. I'm certainly not saying there's not real concerns, because there are.
Is there a feeling out there that the government in Victoria has no idea how rural economies work and maybe doesn't care or have any feeling for people who work in resource industries?
Well, you certainly hear that point of view. The MLAs I know who are NDP, I think they're very serious, committed people who have an understanding of rural needs. I've met with the natural gas minister. That's the Energy and Mines Minister, Michelle Mungal, and Doug Donaldson, the Forest Minister. These are rural MLAs. I think they're very good, serving their local ridings as well as their portfolios very well. So I don't doubt that you've got the right people in cabinet, but they have competing priorities. Obviously a very heavy urban caucus in the NDP right now. Also, they have a relationship with the BC Green Party that is producing all sorts of complications. And I think that is the thing that is maybe placing the good common sense decisions into a slightly different light in some cases, where political decisions are seen to be necessitated. And I think rural people are seeing that. They're a little concerned as to how that dynamic is playing out for them.
Do they get a feeling that perhaps that their way of life is in danger?
Well, yes, because the public, the PR. There's professional reliance. That's PR. There's proportional representation. That's PR. There's too many PRs here. We have to be careful using PR this season. There's apt to be confusion, but with the proportional representation, there is a really clear sense I'm seeing that people see it as a threat to the size of voice that rural communities have. So there's that. And then there's also the new environmental assessment process that's also being proposed. We haven't talked about that, but that's another process from the provincial government where I think, again, complicated by the BC Green influence, is leading to maybe a very different philosophy of how resource development takes place, or doesn't take place, maybe more to the point.
Back in Vancouver, we had the Greenpeace protesters dangling from the Second Narrows Ironworkers Memorial Bridge trying to block tanker traffic. What's your feeling on that protest?
Well, we're a free country. They're not doing that where some of the dubious sources of oil that come to Canada are originated, like Saudi Arabia or Venezuela. I don't see Greenpeace doing bridge drops there. They come to Canada to do it because we're a place where you can do those things in our free society. So good on them for recognizing the freedom. I think one thing, just to be positive about them for a moment, because they do get a lot of criticism, is that it's because of groups like Greenpeace and others who come into our solid governance processes for energy project regulation and approval. They make their views known. They submit the papers and reports they produce saying, here's an issue, we think you should do this. And then you have a project like Kinder Morgan that comes out, it's got 150 conditions. Many of them, I've spent a lot of time reviewing those conditions. Many of them come from those environmental groups that are saying you should protect that river crossing, or you should do this approach to whales, things like that are really, really important. And because of our open processes and people being able to bring that forward, we see projects like Kinder Morgan Pipeline that incorporate this. It doesn't happen that way in Russia or Saudi Arabia. I mean, can you imagine that? Of course it doesn't happen that way. And as a result, we've got really the best pipeline proposal you can imagine in the world. I would challenge anyone to show me one that is better because of the ability of environmental groups to have their say in it. And so now that we've got that, for environmental groups now to be carrying on in this fashion, I think it borders for me on the offensive, on being offensive to the sensibilities of the average Canadian. Most Canadians support the project that they oppose. Most Canadians live and pay taxes in Canada. Greenpeace is based in Amsterdam, and they've had to bring in quite a number of foreign experts, kind of the Cirque du Soleil of environmental movements, to come in and do this under the Bridge High Wire Act. And now they're probably, once they get out of jail, I suppose, they'll be going back to wherever they came from to cause environmental unease in other places, because that's their jobs. They're professionals. They get paid for it. That's one of the objections. And the other thing is that, our oil that we're producing and that's going to be shipped in the new pipeline is a high quality product. It's needed around the world. The ship they were trying to stop from leaving the port by dangling from the bridge was a tanker ship made 10 years ago, a pretty new tanker, very classic size in terms of the type of ship we'll see more of in Vancouver, carrying Canadian oil out of the pipeline for China. And I've heard a little bit of a cottage industry of economists or pseudo-economists out there saying, oh, China will never buy Canadian oil because our Canadian oil is no good. We're just Canadians. We don't know how to make oil. No one will want it. Well, that's nonsense, because that ship is full of oil. It's going to China, and it's making money to pay for the things we need in Canada. And I'm actually incredibly proud of that myself, because I know I've been to Fort McMurray. I've gone to the oil sands. I've seen how it's produced. I've talked to the people doing it. I know it looks big from the air, but actually it's incredibly well managed environmentally. We've got an ability through employment and royalties and taxes paid to distribute the benefits all through the society, and everyone in Canada benefits from that. So again, I find it really offensive when a group from Amsterdam comes in and tries to tell us how we should live. When in Amsterdam right now, they probably got 100 different tankers carrying oil through the canals and up the river to the heart of Europe, and they're not protesting that. Nor are they going to the Gulf of Mexico and protesting the hundreds of tankers there, or San Francisco, where a lot of the protest money and groups come from that trouble Canadian democracy. They're not protesting under the Golden Gate Bridge to stop those tankers. There's probably 10 of them inside the San Francisco port right now. They're not going to Hollywood outside of Leonardo DiCaprio's house, where there's dozens of oil tankers that pass, going to Long Beach, California, to the oil complex there every day, or Jane Fonda's house in Malibu, who protests Canadian oil. They're not saying anything about that. They're targeting Vancouver because I think, Canadians have a big heart. We're open to propositions on the environment, and I think it's really important that Canadians think for themselves. They put Canada first. Let's not put Venezuela first or Saudi Arabia first. For a change, let's put Canada first and produce our own energy and share it with the world.
Are the facts that Greenpeace spouts credible?
Well, I don't find them credible at all, because I've seen the court filings. They've gone into legal conflict with a company called Resolute Forest Products out of Quebec. They've tangled with them in court. Resolute was more than any other company. I think they set an example for standing up to this nonsense. They said, look, if you're going to tell lies about us, we're going to take you to court. And they did. They took Greenpeace to court, hauled them in there. Greenpeace said, I don't have the quotation in front of me, but to the effect of, hey, look, don't expect to hear facts from us. That's not our business. We're here to just, create a general sense of unease amongst the public. We're going to tell them things that, are sort of truthy, but they're not really factual. Our purpose is to create consternation. It's actually incredible when you read those words. If you Google Resolute Forest Products and Greenpeace, anyone can go and see for themselves what I'm talking about, and I don't need to try to paraphrase. But it's shocking, really, because I expect better of an organization. My organization, when I'm quoting things, I do it from a factual perspective. I know that if called upon to show my sources for a statement, I have to be able to do that, and I'm always ready to do that. Greenpeace is an international organization of many decades standing. They raised a lot of money. I think those who give money to them, and the stunt in Vancouver was all about fundraising, in my opinion. They probably expect that Greenpeace is out there doing a conscientious, fact-based job, which is clearly not the case.
Did Canada not set a record for rail oil shipments in April? And isn't rail considered to be a lot more dangerous for shipping oil than
that is,
pipelines?
when you think, okay, so here's Greenpeace saying, don't have a pipeline because we say it's unsafe. Meanwhile, we're going to perpetuate the more oil by rail. Now, by the way, I think rail is a great way of getting around it. It does have a statistical higher likelihood that there would be a mishap from an oil car than from a pipeline. And that's just a fact. Rail is so well done in this country, but the irony of Greenpeace opposing moving to a safer means of shipping oil is just almost too rich to believe, isn't it?
Stewart, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank you, Jim.
My guest has been Stewart Muir, Executive Director of the ResourceWorks Society. His website, resourceworks.com, and find him on Twitter at SJ Muir. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter at HowStreet. Our very popular YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Questions for the show or our guests, like Stewart, can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.